welcome to Appy Hour.
Yeah, we're talking about doing the TikToks,
We were doing the TikToks. Yeah, we're doing
talking
the.
about the social medias.
So I was aging myself there. I was sounding like an old lady.
You
So,
are not. It's just there's so many different
but you know what's funny? The
platforms.
TikTok, the TikToks. I can't even say it right. The TikToks
So
that
good.
I was doing were not work related, so they were horse related. So the TikToks that I was doing when I was doing them was taught. Usually I was in the at the barn or in the paddock with the horses. So anyway, well, welcome everybody.
Yeah, welcome to Appy Hour. We're talking technology and
We
while we were
are
getting
we're talking
started, we were talking about
technology.
the different
We
social
are.
media channels and what they kind of
Yeah. Put
before.
social media in the chat. Tell us what social media channels you guys are using. And for those of you in Facebook land, we already know. So,
Secrets out.
so,
You're
but
not
we
doing
also
the
do we have a
TikTok.
YouTube channel too. So that's exciting. So tell us what social media is your which ones do you love? Tell us in the chat.
And I was sharing that Instagram is my favorite because I
That's
love
your
I
favorite.
love the way that the pictures are laid out. And I don't find that I get quite as sucked in now. Sometimes, the algorithm has figured out exactly what I like. And so it will feed me too many of those and I can lose time.
Mm,
But otherwise,
I do. I get on those reels and man, I end up like an hour goes by and I'm like, how did I just spend an hour watching cat videos?
Well, what always gets me is then the ones that send me the serotonin and dopamine. It's like, wait, hold on. You're like, if you're scrolling this is what it's doing to your serotonin and dopamine. And it's like this
Right,
whole thing
right.
of it's not a finished cycle. So you're getting instant blast of dopamine, but they don't actually equate to anything because you're not actually doing anything. So you step away from social media and you actually feel depleted. You don't feel like you've accomplished anything, although you've had this huge dopamine surge, and then so you're down for the day. So
Mm,
it's kind of interesting the way
it is
that
really interesting.
social media hooks you
Yeah,
and
it really does. It really does.
mm-hmm.
I don't know.
All right, so talking about hooking ya.
Let's talk about tax. Tax. So we're digging into unpacking AI in tax applications. So I'm excited to talk about this. And the first time I saw AI in tax, Liz, it was it actually wasn't tax. It was another app. It was when ChatGPT had first come out and people started programming using, attaching onto ChatGPT, and there was an app that was, I think it was CPA chat or chat CPA or whatever. And
Yeah.
I remember feeling, oh boy,
Ooh,
if this
okay.
is a, are you there?
Yeah, yeah, no, no. I was thinking back to about I mean, I remember that conversation that you and I had.
Yeah, and it was like, and I was a little afraid because I was like, if they're relying on this technology, and at the time, it really was not good at all. Like the hallucinations were crazy, right? You remember when it first got released in 2020 two, and we all started, hanging out with it. We uh it wasn't good. And it still has its
No.
days. It's a lot better, but it still has its days. You still have to, whenever you're using generative AI, you have to use it with the discerning eye and understand that you may be being fed a line, right? Something that's not true. So for us, we know when we're doing Googling accounting things and tax things and not Googling, that's the wrong word, we're GPTing
Right. Yeah.
tax or accounting topics, we recognize when it's wrong because we're the experts. But I find, and I'll tell you my experience that actually cost me some money, was I bought my house over the summer and I broke my water pump.
Mm.
And I had gone downstairs to the basement to turn off the light to my back walkout of my basement. And I turned it off, went back upstairs, and I got in the shower and I had no water. And I'm like, what is going
Oh.
on? Right. So I asked ChatGPT, it had me take all these pictures, and it was like, this is this, and this is this. And it had me cut the power and the circuit breaker and all that other stuff. And anyway, long story short, what I had done was I had turned off the water pump. So what I thought was the light switch was the water pump
Okay.
switch. So I called a plumber, emergency, I have no water. They came over and yeah, big old dum dum. And I had even taken a picture I'd actually given ChatGPT the picture of that light switch, which was the switch to the water pump. And so it could have seen it, but anyway, I relied on it and I shouldn't have relied on it. So because I'm not a plumber, right? But I recognize when things are wrong with accounting or tax because I'm a CPA. So
Well, and I I think that what you're saying to me and what I'm hearing is we're humans first and we need tools. AI is a tool, and you and I are not advocating for all AI.
no, totally. And where I was really going with this was that when I first saw this, GBT CPA or whatever it was, that I can't remember what it was, but I remember when I was seeing it, I was afraid, because what I was afraid of was I was afraid of those DIYers that were going to buy this thing that were not experts in accounting and tax, and they were going to use it and rely on it, and it wasn't, if it was just using chat gpt, I knew that it was going to be wrong and it could get them in trouble. So that was where I was going with it. But I was saying that to preface, to like cue it up, that we've come a long way, baby, in the last like almost 4 years, 3.5 years, right? So what we've learned is a lot of these applications, or most the good ones, are creating their own LLMs, right? And yes, they're using some aspects of Anthropic or OpenAI to power it, but they've put the guardrails around it. So I think that the AI in tax has come a long way, but I agree 100% with you, is that it is not to replace us. It is to help us work better and smarter.
100%. And yeah, David, that cracks me up. Like we still say that in our family. Like somebody will quote something, and the other day it was a religious conversation that we were having, and one of my kids had said something about, well, if it's on the internet, it must be true. So yes, David, I agree with you.
That's what David just said in the chat. He's like, if it's on the internet, it must be true, right? Like it's on GPT, it must be true. It's like not exactly. Like
No.
it's a slightly better than their plumber. Oh, funny. But and also, yeah. Anyway, so you have to be careful because it is, AI. These generative AI models, they are trained to tell you what you want to hear, and they will tell you what you want to hear, even if it is not true. So
Well, and maybe we should like kind of like back up and talk about that just a little bit. But
yeah.
to just talk about, whenever we're talking to any of these large language models, what's happening is it's been fed information. And
Mm-hmm.
like the one that you were talking about in the beginning, one of the things that's happening is it's asking questions and it's giving you, or you're asking it questions, it's giving you answers, and then it's hopeful that you'll correct it if it's not right, and it'll
Yeah.
continue to get more and more information. So even whenever it's not right, there is a hope that it will get fed correct information either by you, somebody else, or it'll learn more somewhere along the line, and so it'll get more and more reliable.
Yes.
um and that's whenever it's just an open, pool of information. Whenever you've got some of these that have got some guardrails on it, like some of the ones that we're going to be talking about today, they've locked down who's feeding it information.
That's
And
right.
so it's being given more direct information that it's reading us, kind of like a textbook. And it's saying, based off of this textbook, give me the answers to my questions.
Right. And in some cases, they're using an SLM, a small language model, right? Which is not drawing from anything but the information it's given it. So in this case, just to piggyback on what Liz is saying, is they're taking the IRS tax code or whatever, right? The actual documents, the actual code, putting it into a container, and then building the SLM around that. So it's not allowing any external, and they're able to lock down, you know, what the user can introduce into the model. So so yeah, it's really interesting, and it is coming a long way. That being said, full transparency, I've talked to lots of tax practitioners that have implemented some AI tools this year that were less than what they expected it to be. So I think that, it's still, and I also want to caveat that with saying that that's true with any technology where you implement a technology and it doesn't do everything that you initially thought it would do. So you really do have to vet it. But I would believe, and Liz, tell me if you disagree, I feel like you have to vet AI apps more than regular apps because of the fact that it's introducing some of this generative AI information that could be, or could interject hallucinations, right? Which is something that we typically don't see when you have rule-based applications.
I would say that where I feel like we're at right now is that we're still very experimental. So I do think that we've got to vet apps, but I don't think that any of them are 100% like where we're going to see them, even by the end of the month
Agreed.
or the
Yeah.
quarter or the year. And so, with a lot of these technologies, we saw a ton of dollars being poured in to these technologies in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And now those dollars are gone. I know that, we've talked about this before, but those dollars are gone, and have they equaled subscription? So we're going to see more and more of the condensing of those technologies. We're seeing it happen already, because AI it hasn't lived up to the hype that it was promised in 2025. It hasn't got there yet.
No, it hasn't gotten there yet. That being said, there is still a lot of money going around.
Oh yeah.
So there's still a lot of money. I mean, I just read a article just, I don't know, 30 minutes ago where Microsoft has just increased the cap on their investment in OpenAI.
But it's a
So
large, like the large corporations are the ones who are investing
it
the large
is. You're right. It's
dollars.
not it's not the private equity, or not as much, right?
Not as much. There's been a
So
little bit of a
yeah,
throttle on it to for it to prove itself.
it was interesting to me too, because I was reading some articles on this app that I just found, that actually Joe Woodard actually introduced me to, and it allows you to follow news about specific companies or topics or things like that. I do use Feedly, but this is a little bit different. Uh, it allows you to follow companies, and so I follow Intuit and Zero and some of the big players out there. And I was reading an article right before I got on that said that Intuit's stock value has dropped by almost 40% because they feel like it has not, they've talked about the AI transformation, but people are feeling like it's coming up short.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
I think it is interesting, and it's changing so rapidly that I don't even know, Heather, how long it'll stay at that drop. I mean, I feel like,
You're right. No, it could go right back up, but
yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
in a day, I mean, it's like
crazy
it is, the stock market's a really kind of volatile right now, and AI is a big part of that. Is
for
it
sure.
it's like, where is it going? Is it helpful? Is it annoying? Is it safe? We're in competition. Who's going to win? So yeah, I don't know. It's a strange place. And for those of y'all that are wondering where Heather and I stand, I think that we're paying attention to AI because it is making such a big impact, and neither of us feel like it's crap. It's definitely has some value to it. It's going to get more and more valuable as time goes on because it's learning so quickly.
It is. It is. I mean, one of the things that you have to keep in mind too is if you have to look at the model. Kevin says Oh, Kevin says if something drops 50%, it has to go up 100% to get back to even. All righty then, yeah. Um, we'll see. It's, I mean, I've been saying all along, we're in the Wild West. We have next to
Yeah.
no regulation on AI. But there's a lot of, with that, there's a lot of exciting things happening. And there's no doubt that AI has transformed the way that I work and the way that
Mhm.
most of the professionals that I interact with work. I mean, we are all in on this AI thing. Um, so it's going to be really interesting to see it grow and evolve. But what I would say is it should not, you should not rely on it. Like you still need to be the expert.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. I agree. And I love what David said too. It's like, you know, um, there was a South Park episode, David, that makes me think about what you're saying. It's like, and what you were saying too, Heather, it's like AI will tell you what you want to hear. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
if you give it a bad business idea, it's going to come back and say, "Oh, that was the most brilliant business idea that I've ever heard before." So I think you're going to be the first in this area. Go forward. And it could
Yes.
be, you're talking about something ridiculous like, something that would never make it as a business idea, but it tries to keep you coming back for
Yes.
more.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's
Well,
interesting though. Yeah, it's interesting. It's getting better though. Like I've built some GPTs and agents that I've put a lot of guardrails around, and it does really well with some regulatory stuff. So let's jump in. That was a great
yeah.
segue into our episode to set the stage for sure. And we would love to hear your thoughts on what do you see in AI. So throughout, we want this to be a conversation. So as we're going through, um, some things, let's yeah.
And I like this one. So, first off, it's just saying how competent are you and how much are you using your daily work? So I would say, on a scale from 1 to 10, are you using it daily? And, how confident do you feel about it? Because, like you were saying, Heather, you're using it every day. It's changed the way that you work. I agree. I've got a couple of different GPTs open every day, and so I'm going back and forth and, looking at what the responses are, evaluating. And so using it weekly, I mean, I think that it's becoming more and more rapid that we're running into AI, and that it's something that we're going to continue to see using
Yeah,
it daily. I think that,
it,
yeah,
it's funny because I remember when we did the road shows with Intuit back in the day, Liz. Um, one of the things that we would often say when we were talking about apps, when you and I were talking about apps, we'd ask people how many people, and this is way back when, when apps were like, there's an app for that, right? Um, we would ask people to raise their hand. We'd say, how many of you are using at least one app in your business? And no one's hand would go up. And we would say, do you use email? And they'd be like, if then you're using an app, that's an application, right? So I think that that's kind of where we are with a lot of people where they are using AI,
yep,
right? They are using AI. They're probably using AI daily. If you are, clicking a summary or using something like Copilot in your email, if you have then that is generative AI. In fact, one of the things that's really interesting is if you use an iPhone and you go in and you see these things on Facebook, we were talking about that at the beginning, where it says, there's the little games where it's like, go in and use the predictive text, right, to generate a sentence that is very, very rudimentary, but that's basically what generative AI is doing, is it's predicting the next word.
well, and Google, like anytime that I do a plant search, it's coming back, and that's AI generated.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's built into just about everything. But I think this question right here is really, what are you worried about? So, for me to answer this question, what am I worried about whenever it comes to AI? I I think that where I get concerned with AI is that lack of privacy. I think that's my biggest area that I worry that the more that we're connected to data collection, the more that information has been shared. And, that's a new concept to allow all of your personal information, the way you think. I mean, look at how people are using ChatGPT or Claude, and a lot of it is mental health. That's a lot of personal information that's being put into it and work information, and you mix all of that together. So that would be my worry.
Yeah. No, I think security is a big deal, and it's only becoming. It's more. It's. I'm not. Well, I'm just going to say it. It's violating our privacy more and more, and I think that that's. You're right. That's going to get worse and worse. I was actually just on Facebook Marketplace because I have something listed there, and one of the ads that came up was a sweatshirt, and the sweatshirt was had Heather, and then the saying, like it was personalized for me.
Oh,
And so I'm like, okay, so now they have ads that are able to see my first name and embed it into their product so that I see it.
yeah.
And so that was like, okay, all right, and I think, I mean, I knew that that was happening anyway, but just to
Hmm.
see it so blatant like that, it was like, okay, well, we're getting a little bolder in the fact that they're sharing our information with folks. So definitely checking your privacy policies, and if you're not comfortable with it,
Hmm.
shut it down. Shut it down. I mean, that's
Well,
it.
and talking about shutting it down, there are some agencies that are out there that will help you do it. I was talking to one, and they were saying to turn off some of the privacy settings inside of LinkedIn alone. There are 42 settings.
Wow.
42 settings that are collecting information, and if you want to lock it down, you have to go in there and manually configure. That's a
I
lot.
think that would be a great Appy Hour episode.
Yeah.
Is to cover privacy on some of these apps that we all use. What do you guys think? If you think that's a good idea to kind of put together an episode where we can show you how to shut down some of this stuff, throw it in the chat because I think that could be a really valuable episode, Liz.
I agree. I agree. And I like these episodes where you and I just kind of explore ideas. And so that's what today is about. Is we're just exploring ideas and this concept of AI and tax. Heather and I kept on running into it in different places. And so we put together some of the solutions that we're seeing
Mm-hmm.
and want to cover. But a lot of what we do is driven based off of interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And I could not, yeah, and David, I think that's absolutely true. We actually, if you want to go to our YouTube channel, David, we did an episode in February with a recent college grad where we actually covered that exact topic. We had a really great conversation with a student about how they're feeling going into the job market, um, and how AI has affected their educational journey and their job searching, and how they work. So
yeah.
definitely,
And one of the things that like we have to acknowledge is this idea of pricing because AI has already started to change the
yes,
pricing strategy.
yes.
So KPMG came out, I think it was in February, and what they said was there was a software solution that they were using for tax strategy for audits, for tax audits. And the software that they were using largely utilized AI. And so what KPMG did is they said, we want a cheaper price because you're using less humans and more technology. So the technology company agreed, and so they got the solution at a cheaper price. But what KPMG didn't expect was that that opened the door for, okay, if you're utilizing these technologies, now your clients are going to expect the same thing.
Ooh,
So, that was in February, and that's been kind of all over the news. And so that
yeah.
was one of those things that has been affecting them since
Yeah,
that decision.
no, for sure. And we're seeing it on the other end too, Liz, where they're starting to say, okay, we're not going to charge, we want to charge you. AI companies are saying we're going to charge you the value
Yep.
of the equivalent of what a human, you would pay a human to do it, since it's doing the same lift. So I think that we're going to have to figure this out.
Hmm.
And that is definitely going to cause some disruption in the economy, right?
Absolutely.
I had said at the very beginning when ChatGPT came out and everybody was jumping on the bandwagon, I said, if you are basing your business model on a $20 a month subscription, enjoy it now, and don't base your pricing on that, because it will not stay $20 a month.
No.
The writing was on the wall even back then, that value is value.
100%. And that's part of some of the thoughts throughout today is these apps, it's all about what's the value. So if you're
Yeah.
utilizing some of these apps, you've got to be thinking about it in a value standpoint, not in an hourly standpoint. Because if you can plug in some information to these solutions, it might take you 30 seconds to get a response,
Mm-hmm.
but you still have to evaluate it. You still have to vet it and then collect that and give it to your clients. I think some of this we already kind of went through, so I'm going to skip through
Yeah,
this.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. Um, one of the things that we were talking about is like, where's the difference whenever it comes to tax? This whole idea of where does AI fit into your workflows? This is, I think, a good comparison because if I look at the traditional workflow, I would say human workflow, human gathering the documents, human cleaning and organizing the data, human researching the issues manually. The human is preparing the return. You might be using a software, but somebody is actually doing it. The human is reviewing the errors based on what they know. And then the human is delivering that to clients. Here's the shift over to the AI enhanced workflow,
Mm-hmm.
intake and classification. Okay, so now you've got an AI agent or form or something that's going out and collecting the information. Maybe it's smart enough that it already is aware of what you know about the client, so it's only asking new information. And then based on that new information, adding it to the new form, but it's able to also automate issue spotting. So maybe it recognizes that they said they got married and such date. They've added a few children, thinking about a personal return, real-time tax planning. It's like, okay, we can give you some advice as we're going, and then draft the outputs, the return memos, notices. So the notices, all of that can be generated by AI in a matter of seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the returns, all of these things can be generated with AI. And this is where the human comes in, is to look at what was the output and evaluate that risk.
That's right. And I think where we were this tax season, and I mean, I don't practice full time anymore. I have a teeny tiny tax practice, and I'm a ProConnect tax user. They have a new smart intake feature in ProConnect Tax Online, which looked great. And what it does is it can read the documents. You basically upload all the documents, it reads it, and it fills out the intake forms within ProConnect Tax. I was like, wow, that's great. I'm going to try it. So I did my first return, and I did it, and it pulled the data in. It pulled the data in. It filled it out for the most part very, correctly. But what it did that ended up causing me a whole bunch of rework time
Yeah.
was that it created a new input sheet in the tax software for every single item. And these were existing clients of mine, right? So what ended up happening is the way that when you roll over a return, you have the prior year data and you have the current year data, and that actually gives you the comparison reports. It helps you with some of the checks that you do to make sure you're not missing information. And so now I would have duplicate input sheets, and so my
Mm,
prior year data was on the one that I put in, that rolled over from the prior year. And then the smart intake had actually created a new form that didn't have the prior year data. So that was something that I felt like they needed to fix somehow. And I don't know how they'll fix that, or if they did, because like I said, I don't do a large volume of returns. So it could be later in tax season they fixed that. I don't know if anybody's on the call and had that same issue, but I stopped using it because I wanted to keep the continuity from year to year because that's important to me. So
So do
those
you
are
go
the
in there and
little
delete?
things where AI powered apps technically do it absolutely correctly. Like they're doing what they say they can do, but there's other workflow issues that these tax practices and these practitioners have that it kind of disrupts that a little bit. And if you have the time, it's fine because you can go through and you can adjust it. But and maybe when it rolls over next year, it'll be fine. But that's a big one. I mean, that was a big one for me.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, and I think that when we were talking about looking at different softwares, we thought about this from a stance of what do we see in the market? And we took three different softwares and we're, going to highlight them today, but um tax planning. So I'm going to talk about instead and then BlueJay, and then we're going to talk about Kintsugi. And
It's Kintsugi.
thank you. I knew I
No
was going to say it
worries. No
wrong.
worries.
But these are softwares that do different things, so they're not all the same. But I'm gonna go ahead and like put us over into instead and start here and talking about this one. So why I thought this was cool and why it was worth talking about, Heather. So um I've got a client and they're an accounting firm, and this is what they actually do. They do tax planning. They also do tax preparation, but a big chunk of their income is coming from tax planning. And so for them, they wanted a software that they could use that would help them to evaluate quickly thousands of returns. So you still have to, if you haven't used this one or aware of it at all, what it does is it evaluates the client's scenario based off of the information that you feed it. So you can give it all of the client data, so bookkeeping information, personal information, everything that you would need to know, even past tax returns. And then based off of the information, it can come back and it can tell you scenarios where the client would be best served with a particular strategy. And then in some of the cases with the client that I'm working with, they've been able to save the clients like $50,000 just in 1 year
Wow.
based off of some strategy. It's designed for somebody who is not specifically a tax professional, but can give some advice. And then what I would say is maybe you could have someone who's plugging in the information can evaluate it to see if it's worthy of then putting it to the next person for it, an actual tax professional that's in your firm to be able to say, yes, this is a strategy that we should utilize, and then taking that to the client. And the way that this is being billed in the scenario that I'm talking about with this client is they're billing it based off of the tax savings, not a we're going to do this for you. It's going to be $1,500. It's more of a here's a $50,000 savings, and we're going to bill you a percentage of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with the tax planning, we're going to start to see, I think with all of these that we're talking about, we're going to see a big increase in the players in the market for sure. Um, that's awesome. And so this one, you're saying that instead tax planning is actually marketed direct to the business?
No, no, but
No?
it is designed for accounting firms specifically. Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But the way that they've positioned it is that you don't have to be a tax professional, but I would say I think it's more than that. I think you really do need to be able to interpret. So somebody like myself, I don't do tax, so I can look at the planning and I can see it enough to be able to say this strategy makes sense. This needs to be evaluated by the actual tax professional. So that's kind of
Yeah.
the framing that I would give it.
That's really, I mean, that's really cool. Yeah, very cool.
And You know,
And I'm
it's
looking at it, it does it. It's going directly to business owners, individuals, or you can work with your CPA. So it looks like they do both. They go direct to market and to firms.
you know, and I would say that the language on there, you know, makes it sound like anybody can do it, but I would say even with my comfort level, it's like there's things that I didn't feel comfortable with agreeing to. So I think that like with my client scenario, they're perfectly positioned because they are a tax firm as well. So to offer these types of services on top of, and it gives them revenue throughout the year.
Awesome. And it looks like they have like a GPT feature, right, where you can ask questions about your return. You can build the tax plan. It allows you to do estimated tax payments, and then it looks like they're going to be offering tax filing soon. So
Do you
it's
want to share
not
screen?
released yet, but I'm just. You want me to share my screen?
Sure.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and share my screen. Where is my screen share? Ah, right here. So yeah. So if we, can you guys see it?
It looks like it's loading. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah. So it looks like when I look at their website, it looks like you put in, you can ask questions, right? Um, it'll it'll kind of search through the resources and tell you where you can save money, and then you can build your tax plan. So it looks like you're uploading information, and then it'll go ahead and pull the information, give you the research. And again, I can see, Liz, that it's explaining it to you, but not everybody's going to understand this. So I agree. This
Mm.
is more suited for a tax professional. And that's what I'm seeing with clients, and that's what I'm hearing from practitioners. And I would love to hear from our viewers. Do you know, what did you hear from clients this year? I feel like what I was hearing from other practitioners was their clients really want a person doing this.
Yeah.
If they, I don't think, we were talking about this earlier in a conversation, Liz, earlier today with someone where the clients that are working with tax practitioners, they're not looking to DIY. They want to have that person in the loop. And so I don't think that there's a danger of those clients going and having a machine do it for them, at least not right now. I'm not saying we won't get there, but right now I don't think that that's the case. I don't think the market is ready for that. So anyway, here it says it can do the estimated tax payments. So you can go through and file your estimated tax payments. And then right here it says imminent release is you can file your returns. So it'll prepare and file all your returns, multi-entity, multi-state, multi-year, and you just ask it to fill it out. And then submit and stay protected. So it's going to e-file it and then monitor and respond to the IRS. So if notices come in, it's going to see those notices, and then you can respond to them right from within the app. So very cool. Did you share? I shared the link.
Yeah, you should link. And Miriam, you asked a really good question, which is what's the security on this particular solution? And
It
oftentimes
actually,
they've put it on their website. Does it say if it's SOC
uh,
compliant?
let's see, resources, security. Let's take a peek. Okay,
Oh,
so
Sandy,
yeah,
Sandy,
safeguard your SOC 2 certification. So there's SOC 2. You can download, and you should download the report and read it. Because they have a report means somebody looked at it doesn't mean that it's compliant. And then this is their white paper. So if you go to the security, you can download. And we obviously don't have time to go through all of that with you guys on today's webinar, but this is, yeah. And they have their privacy policy and then the access and compliance. So,
and then Heather, do you mind going over to pricing? Because whenever I looked at it, it's really pretty inexpensive.
oh yeah.
I was a little shocked at how
So,
well it's working.
yeah. Did you try it, Liz? Did you take out a
Yeah.
trial?
No, I didn't, but I've got a firm that's using it, a client that's using it
Okay. And
and
they're really liking it. That's very
heavily
cool.
using it.
Yeah.
Very happy with it.
Sole proprietor per month. Here's the complete features, tax positions, common deductions, entities. So they're doing 1120s, 1120s, 1065s. They connect to QuickBooks for nothing, it looks like. And then to upload your bank statements, investment accounts, and retirement accounts, it's $100 a month per connection. And then you have all of these users, so you can invite your tax professional in. That's cool.
Hmm.
That's cool. I wonder what the for accountants is. So you become a partner, so they get a discount. You get revenue because you advise. Interesting. And that's the pro dashboard. I wonder if it's free.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's free. No,
For accounting firms, you don't think it's free?
no, no. I think they're paying for it. I
Are
think they're,
they?
but it is not for the value that they're billing to the client.
Mm-hmm.
It's they've got a very profitable margin.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Good find for sure. I think our next one that we were going to talk about was BlueJay.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna head over to BlueJay and
Do you want to share BlueJay or you want me to take
sure,
it?
I'll start and then maybe
Okay,
do the same thing,
perfect.
flip it back over to you.
Okay.
That way we can kind of tell a little bit about it. So the thing with Blue Jay is that they are doing deep research.
Mm-hmm.
So like what you were talking about before, Heather, where ChatGPT, some of these other GPTs can hallucinate and give you bad information. What Blue Jay is saying is that they have sourced the information. They're going to share with you where the sources come from. They're going to share with you um, court scenarios and help you to be able to interpret specific scenarios. So very complex research. Um, they also do some tax prep in here too, but it's designed for this idea of helping to answer complex questions.
Very cool. I'm not seeing that they do tax prep on their website. I don't know if they have a different website for that. I'm seeing just the research.
Okay, so let's just say the research, because that was what I
Yeah.
was familiar with too, but it said prep in here. But
Okay.
the
Yeah.
research is what I was familiar with.
Yeah.
And it has this scenario, and I can pass it over to you, Heather, if you're seeing more on the
Sure.
website. But it has this chat back and forth. So very similar model to what we're used to. You've got the various different chat threads on the navigation bar, and then you can ask it questions, and then it'll give you answers, and it will even tell you um, it'll write up for your client, so it'll explain it to you. It'll explain it even more uh, easier to understand for a client, and then it'll give you the sources too.
That's great. So so here's an example of a question. It's giving you like in layman's terms the answer, and then it's giving and then it's citing it. This is awesome. Um, I think the other thing it does is it'll actually create the emails, right? It'll create
Yeah.
the automated drafting of the emails and memos that you can send to your clients, which is a huge, and I think that's where that's where the time is, right? Like the
Hmm.
researching, I mean, that does take time, but it's writing up the memos, right? And so this does definitely automate. I could see there would be a huge value here, and they're saying the customers save an average of 12 hours per user per month. And that's awesome. What I also loved about when I looked at this, Liz, what I loved was that they went through and answered all the questions that I would have asked if I was looking, to purchase this. So if you go down there, it's like it talks about how they created it, they put their pricing, right up front. So you don't have to go looking for that, which I love, by the way, for for anybody. I want to know what I'm going to pay. I don't want to go to that's it's happened to me so many times where I find something that I think is perfect, but it's not in my budget, right?
Hmm.
And so you go through all of the time of researching it and you realize it's not a viable option because it's out of the budget for the client or out of the budget for the firm. Um, and then it talks about the trading data. So it's based on primary research and tax notes. Um, and they're updating it on a daily basis, which is really important because I've often thought about that. And
Yeah,
then
daily basis.
what's that?
I said be updating on a daily basis, especially as things are changing
Yes.
so
Yeah,
rapidly, is that's important.
for sure. And then they address how does it guard against a hallucination. So it says if they don't have the source material to respond accurately, meaning there's no cite, there's nothing to cite, or it couldn't interpret the prompt. So it doesn't understand instead of just making something up, which we were talking about before, it's just going to say, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an answer. So, and then we're talking about the security too. So, they do maintain SOC 2 compliance. So they check that box. And yeah, some pretty cool stuff. And I'll go ahead and share that link in the chat too. So if people want to go and check it out, um, they can do that.
And I think that this one, BlueJay is very uh dependent on your needs. So not everybody is going to need that solution, but I like
Yeah.
knowing that it's there for those who have true deep tax questions and need research. That is a pain. And so it's right there. It's going to give you information. So if you are, especially if you're um, practicing tax and legal,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be a great resource. So then we also did this other solution, Heather, that I had the most difficult time saying.
It's Kintsugi. Kintsugi,
Kintsugi.
which is actually the name of an art form, um, which is it's Kintsugi pottery, which I know I'm going off on a tangent, but it's really beautiful. It's this pottery. So it's the art of taking broken pottery and piecing it back together using precious metal like gold or platinum or sterling silver. It's really beautiful. So that is what they decided to name the app. So a little fun fact there.
I like the fun fact. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
That helps to explain, why it fits in sales tax. Okay, I get it. It's broken. But one of the things that Heather and I were looking at and why they popped up is sales tax is very complex. And what they're doing that's different is they're utilizing AI in order to aggregate information. Again, it's updated on a daily basis, so that way you know that if any tax laws changing, that you're able to make sure that you're complying. So they're doing some really cool things whenever it comes to calculation, explanation, being able to integrate with a lot of the different apps that are out there.
Yeah, they have over 40 integrations. They cover over 100 countries. So if you're doing international, if you have clients that are doing international, it can handle that. It can do registration, the filings. It's doing all kinds of cool things. So it'll monitor. So you can go through and see if you have Nexus in different areas, which is really, really cool. And then you can obviously file and pay your sales tax.
One of the biggest pains in the butt whenever it comes to e-commerce is sales tax. And I would say that some of the other solutions that are out there have, accommodated e-commerce, but they weren't built for it. And that's one of the things that's different is this has got more of like that, millennial type mindset that businesses are online. And so we need to build for that type of business. And so it's very flexible in that way.
Yeah, no, it looks great. And some really exciting news is we're actually going to have Kintsugi on Appy Hour coming up in just a couple of weeks. So we'll be able to get a deep dive into how it works. And you guys can come back and see if it's something that will really help your clients and your practice.
Absolutely. And to be able to understand what's happening at the calculation level and be able to ask questions. I think that that's one of the things that clients struggle with is tell me why. Why do I have Nexus in that state? Tell me why. What were my thresholds? And so that's the kind of information that you can get from this chat back and forth so that we can further explain to clients what's happening.
Agreed. I mean, when you are using, with sales tax software that we've had in the past, the setup is so important. If you don't set, and even the sales tax tracking in like QuickBooks and and Zero, if you don't set it up correctly, it doesn't calculate correctly. And a lot of times it's the client that's trying to set it up, and it's supposed to be easy.
Right?
It's not. We all know that it's not easy. So this is probably one of the best cases of AI, where it can really, really help us. So
Yeah, I'm excited about that demo. So we'll have that coming up. But the idea here is Heather and I wanted to bring to you what's coming in a variety of different spaces in accounting whenever it comes to AI. And tax, this is one that's going to make a big impact. And how we price, I think, is another big part of that conversation. So tax returns have typically been priced across the board at a kind of a standard rate. I think that that's probably going to change.
yeah.
I think there's a whole lot more opportunity for tax planning to happen in, any size firm. And so whenever you start talking about that, that's where the clients really want to have the advice. They're like, yeah, I get it that, I need to have my taxes filed, but, so and so says that their tax accountant can do blah, blah, blah for them. Well, you need some strategy, you need some help on, what would be the best practice for that particular client. They don't see themselves as different, but utilizing softwares to help you find the best plan for a client and then to talk about it with them,
hmm Where
help
I
them
see th-
understand.
where I see this really becoming, um, really supercharging tax practices is when you look across the entire firm. Right. So looking at different tax treat and being able to look with inside a return and see all of your clients that benefit from a certain tax treatment or have, specific uh have specific tax items or things that are happening, or even looking at, you know, all your clients that have a particular employer, like being able to use AI to look at the details of the tax returns across your
Mhm.
entire firm. I mean, can think about how you could really help and grow your practice with that kind of information. And I think we're going to start seeing that. And I think we're already starting to see like some of these solutions talking about how they're going to be able to do that and implement that for firms.
Absolutely. I think that this whole idea of the reframing of how are we going to price and stay competitive with
Mm-hmm.
so many tools and the pricing of the tools and the usage of the tools and the different users in your firm that are able to use the tools. I think that we're going to have a big shift. It's not going to be like immediate, but I do think that it's coming. So the faster that you can become aware, we always want to help with awareness. I think the better positioned you're going to be as the landscape changes.
For sure.
So other things that are coming up. So we have the demo that we're going to be doing into the tax software so that way we can see how to actually use it, what it looks like. Um, oh, wait, I've got some slides in here. Heather, did you put this in there?
Nope.
74% of accounting firms say AI is already embedded in their daily apps. I
I
agree with that.
I agree with that. In fact, I think that
Yeah,
number might be even higher at this point. So I've been reading a lot of surveys. They keep coming out. a lot of companies have been doing that. Carbon, I think, is the one that I just recently read, and I think the number was slightly higher than that.
You know, um, the ones that are doing it where you don't even know that you're utilizing AI, that's pretty slick too. So some
Yeah.
people are, they want to be able to interact with the AI, and others are just like, just make the app work better. Don't tell me how you're doing it. I don't care. I just want you to do it
Hmm.
better. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah. But anyway, you can check out this episode and others on YouTube. And this is where I was heading into what's coming up. So we've got a couple of really cool episodes that are coming up. We're going to have the sales tax episode that's going to be around the corner, and then we're going to be talking to App Inventory, which that is a solution that helps you with app consulting, and then also just looking at where the spending is happening inside of your client's business and even your own. So being able to evaluate subscriptions, who's using them, do you have duplicate subscriptions? So that one's pretty cool. And then Heather and I are going to be live at scaling.
We will be live at scaling, absolutely. And so look for us there. The other thing is, if you're going to San Diego next week for the Accounting Today Growth Forum, Liz and I are going to be co-teaching a session there on how to build your firm's 12-month AI transformation roadmap. So we're going to be talking about strategies for that. Liz is going to be sharing how she has implemented these concepts in her own practice. And so, if you're going to be at that session, or if you're going to be in San Diego, Sandy, you're going to be there. Awesome.
Oh,
We
awesome.
look forward to seeing you there. So come find us and come to our session. Come see us. We're excited.
Absolutely. Love to see you. It's on Wednesday.
Yes.
Well, it's always a blast. I enjoy hanging out and chatting with my friends. And let us know what kind of episodes you want us to talk about. Like, what's getting your interest? What are you looking at? Yeah, even what scares you about AI.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know what you're thinking because we know that everybody's kind of all over the spectrum. Like I was saying at the beginning, Heather and I, we both have our feelings about the direction that we're headed, but there's some awareness that you just have to as you're implementing AI, put in place. So security, best practices, workflows, just awareness.
That's why I'm so excited about what we're doing at Scaling New Heights this year, because we went all in on AI, and we didn't go all in on AI like AI. It's interesting because a lot of the sessions are focused on you know, keeping the human, like using it responsibly, right? Looking at
Mm.
it for realsies, right? Like, so what is it really doing? So if you, hopefully we'll be seeing lots of you at Scaling New Heights, but if you haven't already registered, go out and check it out because there's quite the extensive track on everything from introduction to AI all the way up to building agents. So, gonna be some really cool stuff. And we have Daniel Susskind, uh, who's going to be talking on Sunday in the afternoon keynote. And yes, Sandy, the agenda is out. All the sessions are out. And if you are registered, the app launched last week. So if you want to go, you can
Ooh,
start picking your sessions. Liz is doing a session on AI app consulting. So, and she's also doing a main stage on how
ooh.
firms are really using AI. So she's going to be moderating a panel with three firms, a small, medium, and large firm, on how they're using AI in their firms. So really, really cool stuff.
Absolutely. I can't wait. It's
Mm-hmm.
always a good time to be able to, network and explore and ask questions to fellow peers. What are you doing? What's working?
Mm-hmm.
And, the same thing applies to the AI world. What are you doing? What's working? What's not
Exactly.
working?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's a really exciting time, but it's a very exciting time. But with all that excitement, it's also really important to stay grounded.
yeah,
So,
great advice.
all right,
I like the way you're
everybody.
saying it, grounded.
We're at
Mm.
the top of the hour, Liz. Always a pleasure to hang out with you. And we'll see you guys next time on Appy Hour.
Cheers until next time.